What happens when one of the biggest pop stars in the world walks onto a late-night talk show and refuses to play by the rules? What happens when a host pushes just a little too hard and a guest decides they have had enough? Tonight, we are breaking down one of the most shocking moments in late-night television history. The night Miley Cyrus got kicked off Jimmy Kimmel Live. And trust me, this is not what you think. Before we get into this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me which celebrity you think would never walk off a talk show. Now, let's get into it. The energy in the studio that night was electric. The audience was packed, the cameras were rolling, and Jimmy Kimmel was in his element. Miley Cyrus was the guest everyone had been waiting for. She had just dropped new music, she was everywhere in the media, and people were ready to see what she would say. Jimmy started the interview the way he always does, with that smooth, friendly tone that makes guests feel comfortable. "Miley Cyrus, everybody," Jimmy said as the applause died down. "Thank you so much for being here. You look great. It is so good to see you." Miley smiled and waved to the crowd. "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Always a pleasure." "Always a pleasure," Jimmy repeated, leaning back in his chair. "So, new music, new era, new everything. You have been through so many different phases in your career. How do you even keep track of all the versions of Miley Cyrus?" Miley laughed, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she had heard this question 1,000 times before. "You know, I do not really think of them as phases. I think of them as growth. People change, people evolve. I am just doing it publicly." Right, Jimmy said, nodding along. "But I mean, come on. You went from Hannah Montana to, wrecking balls and foam fingers. That is a pretty big jump." The audience laughed. Miley's smile tightened just a bit. "Yeah, well, that was over a decade ago, Jimmy. I feel like we have all moved on from that." "Oh, totally, Jimmy said, holding up his hands in mock surrender. "I am just saying, it was memorable. I mean, the whole world was talking about it." "They were," Miley agreed. "And then they talked about something else. That is how the world works." Jimmy chuckled, but there was a slight awkwardness creeping into the conversation. "Fair enough. So let us talk about the new music then. The new album. It has got a very different sound. Very raw, very stripped back. Was that intentional, or did it just kind of happen?" "It was very intentional," Miley said, her tone sharpening just a little. "I wanted to make something that felt honest. Something that was not trying to be anything other than what it is. I think people appreciate authenticity." "Absolutely," Jimmy said. "Authenticity is huge right now. Everyone wants authenticity. But here's the thing I have always wondered about you. How do you know which version of yourself is the authentic one? Because you have been so many different things." Miley tilted her head, studying him. "What do you mean by that?" "Well," Jimmy said, leaning forward, "you have been the Disney kid. You have been the rebellious pop star. You have been the country girl. You have been the rock chick. How do you know which one is really you?" Miley's expression shifted. The smile was gone now. "They are all me, Jimmy. That is the point. I do not have to pick one version of myself and stick with it forever. I am allowed to be complicated." Of course, Jimmy said quickly. "I am not saying you are not. I am just saying, from the outside, it can look a little, I do not know, calculated maybe." The audience went quiet. You could feel the tension in the room. Miley stared at Jimmy for a long moment before responding. "Calculated. Yeah, like you know," Jimmy said, clearly realizing he had stepped into dangerous territory but trying to play it off. "Like maybe you were just trying on different personas to see what sticks. Like a marketing thing." Miley let out a short, humorless laugh. "A marketing thing. Wow. Okay, I am not trying to offend you," Jimmy said, holding up his hands again. "I am just asking the question that I think a lot of people have." "Right?" Miley said, her voice cold now. "A lot of people, or just you?" Jimmy shifted in his seat. "I mean, I have heard it said." "You have heard it said," Miley repeated. "Jimmy, do you think I sit around in a boardroom with a bunch of executives trying to figure out which version of myself is going to sell the most records?" "I do not know," Jimmy said, trying to laugh it off. "Do you?" "No," Miley said flatly. "I do not. I make music that feels true to me in that moment. I dress the way I want to dress. I say what I want to say. And if people do not like it, that is their problem, not mine." Okay, Jimmy said, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground. "I get it. You are living your truth. That is great. But you have to admit, some of the choices you have made over the years have been pretty controversial." "Controversial to who?" Miley shot back. "To you. Two people who think women should act a certain way." Jimmy blinked. "No, I am not saying that." "Then what are you saying?" Miley asked, her voice rising slightly. "Because it really sounds like you are trying to tell me that being myself is somehow wrong." "I am not saying that at all," Jimmy insisted. "I am just saying that you have to expect that when you put yourself out there in such a bold way, people are going to have opinions." "Of course they are," Miley said. "But there is a difference between having an opinion and constantly questioning whether someone is being genuine. You are sitting here implying that I am fake, that everything I do is some kind of act." "I am not implying that," Jimmy said, his tone defensive now. I am just trying to have a conversation. No, Miley said, shaking her head. You are trying to make me defend myself for not fitting into whatever box you think I should be in, and I am not going to do that. The audience was dead silent now. Jimmy looked uncomfortable. Miley, I think you are misunderstanding what I am saying. Am I? Miley asked, because it seems pretty clear to me. You do not take me seriously. You think I am just some pop star who changes her image whenever it is convenient. And honestly, Jimmy, that is insulting. Jimmy opened his mouth to respond, but Miley kept going. I have been in this industry since I was a kid. I have dealt with people like you my entire life. People who want to put me in a box and then criticize me when I do not stay there. I am done with it. Okay, I hear you, Jimmy said, trying to regain control of the situation. But I think you are being a little sensitive here. Miley's eyes widened. Sensitive? Did you just call me sensitive? I mean, yeah, Jimmy said, clearly not realizing how badly he was making things worse. You are taking this really personally. It is personal, Miley said, her voice tight with anger. You are sitting here questioning my integrity on national television. How am I supposed to take that? Jimmy sighed. Look, Miley, I am sorry if I offended you. That was not my intention. But this is a talk show. We ask questions. That is what we do. Asking questions is fine, Miley said, but there is a way to do it that is respectful. And this is not it. Jimmy looked at the audience as if expecting them to back him up, but they were all just watching in stunned silence. I think we should probably move on, he said. Yeah, Miley said, standing up. I think we should. Jimmy looked up at her, confused. What are you doing? I am leaving, Miley said simply. I am not going to sit here and let you disrespect me. Miley, come on, Jimmy said, his tone shifting to something almost pleading. Do not do this. We can talk about something else. I do not want to talk about something else, Miley said. I want to leave. The audience gasped. Jimmy stood up too, clearly panicking. Miley, please, let us just finish the interview. We have got more to talk about. No, Miley said firmly, we do not. Jimmy took a step toward her, his hands raised in a gesture that was meant to be calming but came across as condescending. Miley, seriously, you are overreacting. Just sit down and we will talk about the album. We will talk about whatever you want. Miley turned to face him fully, her expression hard. I am not overreacting, Jimmy. And the fact that you think I am just proves my point. You do not get it. You do not get what it is like to have every single thing you do picked apart and analyzed and judged. You do not get what it is like to be told you are too much or not enough or not real. Okay, but Miley, Jimmy said, his voice taking on a frustrated edge, you are a celebrity. This is part of the job. You signed up for this. Miley let out a bitter laugh. I signed up to make music. I signed up to perform. I did not sign up to be treated like I am not a real person with real feelings. And I definitely did not sign up to be interrogated by someone who clearly has no respect for me. That is not fair, Jimmy said, his own anger starting to show now. I have plenty of respect for you. I invited you on my show. You invited me on your show so you could make fun of me, Miley shot back. So you could get your laughs by implying that I am fake and that everything I do is for attention. Well, congratulations, Jimmy, you got your moment. I hope it was worth it. The audience was shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some people were pulling out their phones. Jimmy glanced at the cameras, clearly aware that this was spiraling out of control. Miley, please, can we just take a breath here? Can we just reset and start over? No, Miley said, we cannot, because you do not actually want to have a real conversation with me. You just want to treat me like I am some circus act. Jimmy rubbed his face, clearly stressed. I do not think you are a circus act. I think you are talented. I think you are interesting. That is why I wanted you here. Then why did you spend the first 10 minutes of this interview trying to tear me down? Miley asked. Why did you question my authenticity? Why did you imply that I am just playing dress up with my own identity? Because, Jimmy said, his voice rising, because people want to know. People are curious about why you keep changing. That is a legitimate thing to ask about. It is not legitimate when you ask it in a way that suggests there is something wrong with me. Miley said, it is not legitimate when you frame it like I am being dishonest. I have never lied about who I am. I have always been upfront about my journey, about my struggles, about everything. And you are sitting here acting like I owe you an explanation for existing. Jimmy shook his head. That is not what I am doing. Yes, it is, Miley said. And I am done. I am done defending myself to people who have already made up their minds about me. Jimmy looked at his producers off camera, clearly hoping for some kind of intervention, but no one moved. He turned back to Miley. Okay, fine. If you want to leave, leave. But you know this is going to look bad for you, right? People are going to say you could not handle a simple interview. Miley stared at him, disbelief written all over her face. Are you serious right now? You are threatening me. I am not threatening you, Jimmy said quickly. I am just saying, this is going to be a story. People are going to talk about this. Let them talk. Miley said. I would rather people talk about me standing up for myself than sitting here and letting you disrespect me. At least then they will know I have a backbone. Jimmy laughed, but it was not a friendly laugh. A backbone, right? You know what, Miley, maybe the reason people question your authenticity is because you are so quick to play the victim. Everything is always someone else's fault. Everything is always someone disrespecting you or not understanding you. The audience gasped again. Miley went very still. What did you just say? Jimmy seemed to realize he had gone too far, but he doubled down anyway. I am just saying, maybe instead of blaming everyone else, you should look at your own behavior. Maybe that is why people have questions. Miley's voice was dangerously quiet. My behavior? You mean my behavior of being honest? My behavior of being myself? My behavior of not pretending to be something I am not just to make people like you more comfortable? I mean your behavior of walking off a talk show because you did not like a question, Jimmy said. That is what I mean. I am not walking off because I did not like a question, Miley said, her voice shaking now with anger. I am walking off because you are being disrespectful and condescending, and I do not have to tolerate that. I do not care if this is your show. I do not care if you have the home field advantage here. You do not get to treat me like garbage. I am not treating you like garbage, Jimmy said, exasperated. I am trying to have a conversation with you, and you are making it impossible. Because it is not a conversation, Miley said. It is an interrogation. You are not listening to anything I am saying. You are just waiting for your next chance to make me look bad. Jimmy threw his hands up. Okay, you know what? Fine. You want to leave? Leave. I am not going to stand here and argue with you all night. Good, Miley said, because I am done arguing too. She started to walk toward the edge of the stage. Jimmy called after her. You know what the funny thing is, Miley? You are proving my point right now. You are showing everyone that you cannot handle criticism, that you cannot handle anyone challenging you. Miley stopped walking. She turned around slowly. The look on her face was one of pure fury. You think this is about criticism? You think I cannot handle criticism? Jimmy, I have been criticized my entire life. I have had people say the most horrible things about me. I have had people tell me I am a bad role model, that I am ruining my career, that I am trash. And I have handled all of it. But there is a difference between criticism and disrespect, and you crossed that line. Jimmy scoffed. I crossed the line. You're the one making a scene. I am making a scene because you gave me no choice, Miley said. You backed me into a corner and then acted surprised when I fought back. What did you expect me to do? Just sit there and smile while you insulted me. I did not insult you, Jimmy insisted. Yes, you did, Miley said. You insulted my intelligence, my integrity, and my character. And then when I called you out on it, you tried to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. Well, I am not overreacting, and I am not crazy. I am just someone who knows their worth and refuses to be treated like they do not matter. The audience started clapping. Not everyone, but enough people that it was noticeable. Jimmy looked stunned. Are you seriously clapping for this? One person in the audience yelled out, let her speak. Jimmy looked like he had been slapped. Let her speak. She has been speaking. She has been speaking non-stop, and you have been talking over me the entire time, Miley said. You have been dismissing everything I say. You have been making this about you and your ego instead of actually engaging with me like I am a human being. Jimmy's face was red now. My ego. You are calling me egotistical. You are the one who cannot handle one tough question without throwing a tantrum. Tough question, Miley repeated, her voice incredulous. You think asking me if I am fake is a tough question? That is not a tough question, Jimmy. That is a rude question. That is a disrespectful question. And the fact that you cannot see the difference is exactly the problem. Jimmy looked at the cameras again, then back at Miley. Okay, you know what? I think we are done here. We have been done, Miley said. I tried to leave 5 minutes ago and you would not let me. I would not let you, Jimmy said, his voice rising again. You are an adult, Miley. You can do whatever you want. No one is forcing you to stay here. You are right, Miley said. No one is forcing me, which is why I am leaving. Goodbye, Jimmy. She turned and walked off the stage. The audience erupted. Some people cheering, some people booing, some people just sitting in shocked silence. Jimmy stood there, looking completely bewildered. Well, he said to the audience, trying to regain his composure. That was something. But Miley was not gone. She stopped just off stage, and the cameras could still see her. She turned back around, and everyone in the studio went quiet again. Actually, you know what, Jimmy? I am not done. Jimmy looked confused. What? Miley walked back onto the stage. The audience went wild. I am not done because I do not want to leave here with people thinking I am the problem. I do not want to walk away and let you control the narrative. Jimmy held up his hands. Miley, come on, let us just end this. No, Miley said firmly. You wanted to have a conversation? Let us have a real conversation. Let us talk about why you felt the need to question my authenticity in the first place. Let us talk about why you think it is okay to treat your guests like they are on trial. Jimmy looked uncomfortable. I do not treat my guests like they are on trial. You treated me like I was on trial, Miley said. From the moment I sat down, you were looking for ways to poke holes in me. You were not interested in my music. You were not interested in what I had to say. You were interested in creating a moment. And you did. Congratulations. Jimmy sighed heavily. Miley, I am sorry if you felt attacked. That genuinely was not my intention. Then what was your intention? Miley asked. Because from where I am standing, it felt like you wanted to make me look foolish. Jimmy was quiet for a moment. The entire studio was holding its breath. My intention, he said slowly, was to ask you questions that I thought were interesting. Questions that I thought the audience would want to hear answers to. But you did not ask them in good faith. Miley said, you asked them in a way that was designed to put me on the defensive. You asked them like you had already decided I was guilty of something. Guilty of what? Jimmy asked. Guilty of being inauthentic, Miley said. Guilty of being calculated. Guilty of not being the person you think I should be. Jimmy shook his head. I do not think you should be anyone other than who you are. Then why did you spend this entire interview implying that who I am is not good enough? Miley asked. Why did you make it sound like I need to pick one version of myself and stick with it forever? Jimmy rubbed his temples. Because people change, Miley, and when someone changes as much as you have, people wonder why. That is normal. That is human nature. People do not just wonder why, Miley said. They judge. They criticize. They tear you apart for not staying the same. And you fed into that tonight. You fed into the idea that growth is suspicious, that evolution is fake. And that is damaging. I did not mean it that way, Jimmy said, but that is how it came across, Miley said, and that matters. Words matter. The way you frame things matters. You have a platform, Jimmy. You have influence. And when you use that platform to question someone's integrity, it has consequences. Jimmy looked genuinely troubled now. Okay, I hear you. I understand what you are saying, Miley asked, because I am not sure you do. I think you are just saying that because you want this to be over. I do want this to be over, Jimmy admitted. But not because I do not care, because this has gotten way out of hand. It got out of hand because you made it personal, Miley said. You could have asked me about my music. You could have asked me about my creative process. You could have asked me a million different things. But instead, you chose to question who I am as a person. And that is why we are here. The audience was completely silent now. Everyone was watching this play out like it was a movie. Jimmy looked at Miley, and for the first time, he seemed to really see her. You are right, he said quietly. I did make it personal. And I should not have. Miley blinked, clearly not expecting him to actually admit it. What? You are right, Jimmy repeated. I should not have questioned your authenticity. I should not have implied that you are anything other than genuine. That was wrong of me. Miley stared at him for a long moment. Are you being serious right now, or are you just saying this because the cameras are rolling? I am being serious, Jimmy said. Look, I am not perfect. I make mistakes, and I think I made one tonight. I pushed too hard. I asked questions in a way that was not fair to you. And I am sorry. Miley's expression softened slightly, but she was still guarded. You really hurt me, Jimmy. You made me feel like I was not worthy of respect, like I was just some joke to you. You are not a joke to me, Jimmy said. I swear. I think you are incredibly talented. I think you are brave for constantly reinventing yourself. I think you are one of the most interesting artists of our generation. I got caught up in trying to make good television and I forgot that you are a real person with real feelings, and that was wrong. Miley crossed her arms. You know what the worst part is? I came here excited to talk to you. I was looking forward to this. I thought we were going to have a good conversation, and instead, I ended up feeling like I had to defend my entire existence. I know, Jimmy said, and I am sorry for that. I really am. Miley looked out at the audience, then back at Jimmy. I do not know if I believe you. I do not know if this is just damage control or if you actually mean it. I mean it, Jimmy said, and I understand if you do not believe me right now. I understand if you need time to process this. But I hope you know that I am not trying to hurt you. I never was, but you did hurt me, Miley said, and that is what matters. Intention does not erase impact. Jimmy nodded. You are absolutely right. It does not, and I will do better, I promise. Miley studied him for another long moment. Then she sighed. Okay, Jimmy asked hopefully. Okay, I accept your apology, Miley said, but I am still leaving. I do not want to sit back down and pretend like nothing happened. I think we both need some space. Fair enough, Jimmy said. I understand. Miley started to walk off again, but this time Jimmy did not try to stop her. She paused at the edge of the stage and turned back one more time. Jimmy, yeah, next time you have a guest on, maybe try to remember that they are a person first and a celebrity second. We all have feelings. We all have limits. And we all deserve to be treated with dignity. Jimmy nodded. I will remember that. Good, Miley said. And then she was gone. The studio was completely silent for what felt like an eternity. Jimmy stood there, looking shell-shocked. Finally, he turned to the cameras. Well folks, that was intense. I think we are going to take a commercial break. The cameras cut, but the damage was done. The internet exploded within minutes. Videos of the confrontation went viral. People were taking sides, analyzing every word, every gesture, every facial expression. Some people praised Miley for standing up for herself. Some people criticized her for being too sensitive. Some people called out Jimmy for his line of questioning. Some people defended him, saying he was just doing his job. The debate raged on for days. But one thing was clear. This was not just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a moment that highlighted something much bigger. The way we treat public figures, the way we expect them to constantly explain and justify themselves, the way we question their authenticity just because they dare to change and grow. Miley Cyrus did not get kicked off Jimmy Kimmel Live because she could not handle a tough question. She walked off because she refused to be disrespected. And whether you agree with her or not, you have to admit, that takes guts. So what do you think? Was Miley right to walk off? Or did she overreact? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we have got plenty more stories like this coming your way. What other celebrity interview moments do you want us to cover next? Let us know in the comments.